Okay. The program will take, it starts today. This is the flagship event and the opening panel of the Women in Automation Program 2023. For us in UiPath community, this is not the first time we are organizing Women in Automation. We did it as well years before, but it's the first time we turned it into a program and made it with such a complex structure as it has today. So we're starting today, 9th of March, until the very end of the month, 31st. You will have access to training resources, inspirational panels such as this one, and of course, a lot of mentoring sessions, actually 16. You have here the timeline of the program, the number of events. Of course, we have 2 dedicated training threads, of which you should also only choose one, like Studio or Studio X, depending whether you want to become an RPA developer and you already have some technical background, or you are aiming to become a citizen developer. Also, we have 2 learning assignments in Academy for each of these training threads. So you will have some supported assisted training in the program, and then you will have also some assignments in UiPath Academy. Not too much, about 3 courses out of the foundation courses, but those should be completed by the end of the month. And then we go into the mentorship part of the program, where we have 16 mentorship sessions. And this also will take place throughout the month, various events spread around the month. The minimum requirements of the program are, of course, to attend today's session, to enlist for one of the training threads, and to participate in the 2 training sessions in the thread, and optional to choose one of the mentorship sessions. Of course, another requirement would be to finish the Academy assignment from the foundation course. You can see here, like, our speakers today. We are going to start this session, opening panel, like fuel your inspiration from women leaders in automation, and then we'll shortly follow with the introduction to RPA to get you started right at the beginning of the program and start the first training. Then as you go through the page, you can just have exactly how you should go through the links and start registering within the program. So you register for the training thread, then you go over the Academy material, and then you have the mentorship sessions, for which, if you haven't yet saved your seat, do it as fast as possible, because these sessions have only 10 seats available each, since they are mentorship sessions. And with this, I will close it here. Of course, you will find the entire, all the lineup. We have the trainers, the mentors in the program. You will find them on the program page, so you can check each of their profiles. And if you have any questions regarding the program, please just ping us in chat and we will shortly answer. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jackie, who is our moderator today, our host for the panel, and let her introduce our speakers. Thank you for joining.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. May I be the first to wish all the women a happy Women's Day today. It is definitely great to see how many people are gathering with us to commemorate this month and kind of share it with us, share their stories, and be excited about what this could mean for a community together. With us today, we have quite a few women in technology and in automation who are leaders in the space. They're very passionate about what they do, and I think we're very lucky to have them here with us today to tell their stories. So I'm going to let them each do a bit of an introduction for themselves, because I won't be able to do it as much justice. They are amazing, and some of their stories are truly something to be understood and inspired by. So with us today, we've got Venita, Paula, Dana, and Susanna. So Venita, I'm going to hand over to you first, please. Would you mind maybe just introducing yourself, telling us where you're from, what work you're doing, maybe summarize that in 2 or 3 keywords, and then also just explain to us how you got involved in automation.
Hi, everyone, and wish you all wonderful ladies a very happy Women's Day. I'm Venita Nair, and I work for NatWest Group. I head up the business automation services for enterprise engineering technologies. And I'm the platform owner for RPA, electronic signatures, and enterprise content management platforms. In 3 words, if I have to describe what I do, I think what I believe in the most is innovate, grow, and build and grow, in that order. And how I ended up in automation is that I was actually heading up the contact center capability. For that, I built an NLP solution for voice assistants. And that's when my company prior to this was actually delving into the idea of some low-hanging fruits on automation, especially the optimization team was working on doing the landscaping work when I joined up their research team, because they wanted me to actually figure out what tool, what technology would be helpful, because I already had an NLP ML experience. So I was a natural choice to be brought in there. And since I'm very curious, like inherently, and ready for a change always, and take up new challenges, I just took that up. It was pretty good challenge to take up, and that's where I never stopped, never looked behind, and I've been constantly working on my automation journey.
That's a brilliant story. Thank you so much for sharing, Vineeta. And it's great to see how passion has brought you to where you are today. And we'll touch on that a little bit more in the session. Paula, do you maybe want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the program. First of all, thank you so much to the UiPath community for putting together yet another stellar organizational bring together of this really important topic. I work for Wonderbots, and I head up business development over there. And really what I like to refer to myself as is kind of an evangelist of automation in my role. My responsibility is to keep up to date with the latest and greatest and help inform our clients and our new prospects of how automation is so vital, crucial, and at this point, just you can't live without in an enterprise setting. I stumbled my way into automation, actually. I don't have a background in any kind of technical specific acumen. I'm actually a history major, truth be known. But the way that I stumbled into automation was actually being a process improvement analyst for several years in my career. And so on the operational side of things, it became very evident to me that a Visio diagram subtly translates into what we use in automation to begin automating tasks and processes. And so my career sort of evolved, developed, and segued into this wonderful world of automation. And I've now really been firmly planted in for over 8 years, and I'm not going anywhere. Intelligent automation is definitely in my DNA at this point. So thanks so much for having me, and looking forward to this discussion. Thanks, Jackie.
Awesome. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing, Paula. Dana, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, and welcome to everyone. What an incredible opportunity to be speaking with this tremendous group of women this morning. My name is Dana Forfa, and I have the honor of leading global procurement, real estate, and travel here at UiPath. If Paula stumbled and Vineeta had a straight shot into automation, I like to say that I fell into it. I am a political science major. I graduated from college and went into consulting. I worked in retail to afford the wardrobe for the consulting gig, so always was working multiple jobs. I was incredibly determined to get into financial services in Manhattan, so I took a role as a runner, which means that I cleaned conference rooms and stocked the fridge, and did so proudly. And I fell into procurement when I was upset with the quality of the orchids and asked if I could speak to the vendor. And that was my first step into vendor management. I learned about automation prior to coming to UiPath, and I just feel like this is such an area that is ripe for tossing the tedious in what we do every day. Since joining UiPath and leading procurement, I've really, I would say, enhanced this passion to bring more automation to finance and created the first automation champion role within the procurement team. So the journey goes on from here.
That's brilliant to hear. And I'm starting to pick up a bit of a trend, that I think in some cases this caught quite a few people by surprise, and we'd be keen to hear, in the audience, if you want to drop that into the chat, if many of you have felt that experience too. It's great to see, how life can change so quickly, and how, really things just do work out the way that they're supposed to. Thank you so much for that, Dana. Susanna, do you want to maybe go next?
Sure, and I just want to say the same as the other ones, that it's incredible to see the crowd also that we're having here listening in, from all over the globe. And what I can contribute with here, I think also is taking the European view upon things, right? And I'm located in Stockholm, Sweden. Susanna Estrengevit is my name. And I also took maybe a bit straighter steps into automation by doing system integration development in the past. But I felt that that was a bit too, long, not say long, but it was a bit not that close to the business, I should say, and wanted to go closer to business, closer to processes, seeing the result quicker than you can do in doing system integration development. And that's how I came into automation and RPA now 6 years ago. And I've been doing many different things, many different roles, but now I'm the Director of Intelligent Automation Engineering within Roboyo. So it's a consultancy firm helping our customers to grow and really see how they can, with automation, change the way that we work. And there's lots of things have happened, but I think that lots of things also are going to happen now in the future and in the coming years.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Susanna. So my name is Jackie Miller. I'm a lecturer at Northwest University and an application architect at Dimension Data. And very much like the ladies on the panel as well, I think automation kind of found me, not really the other way around. We had a client once ask, for this RPA thing that nobody really knew much about in our team. And, quick Google search, found UiPath and started, working on some of the training, some of the solutions, and saw what the power of UiPath was. And then since then decided, that was going to be something I wanted to take into the education space as well. So bringing the two different jobs that I have together into the same space. And that's really where I found my passion, being able to see, how these benefits that we realize in the business can actually be related to education as well. So yeah, that's kind of my story as well. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing. What I do also want to maybe just chat about a little bit is to see what impact automation has had on your life. So, we've now shared stories about where we come from, what we're doing, how we kind of, got our first introduction into automation, but what impact has it made? Has there been like a standout moment for you in automation? And I think we can start off with Paula.
Sure. So from a couple perspectives, I think one of the first automation projects that I was privy to was actually automation for good, and it was a very simple process, but that did a very impactful outcome. Right? It had a very impactful outcome, and that was for Make-A-Wish Foundation. And what we don't think about day in, day out, and Dana, shout out to Ashim. I love CFOs. I work with CFOs day in, day out. That's, one of the primary clients of Wonderbots. But when you get to see automation be applied for something that has a greater significance and a greater power, it really, really fuels the motivation and the passion behind what I do. And very early in entering the space, a very simple automation, very, very simple. A developer would probably look at me and go, okay, that's a day, no biggie. Was actually able to accelerate the process in which children were able to obtain their wish prior to, reaching sort of a really tragic state in their life and potentially not making it to see another day. And so to be able to give a child, a trip to Disney because automation was implemented and it was less than an FTE equivalent for 1 year was mind-blowing. And I thought that if I could be part of something that could be so impactful, right? And in that small scale, then I could be part of something that could be that much greater. Well, then what am I waiting for? And so my background in process improvement, my Lean Six Sigma, all of that sort of evolved and emerged into the space that said, I don't want to just be in consulting. I want to be in consulting and intelligent automation. And while I'm not the most technically savvy by nature, you can ask all my IT team. I'm the one that comes to them with, can you help me with my computer or this upgrade that takes place? The understanding, and it was what Susanna was saying about understanding the business application of it, was something that I could bring to the table. And then couple that with empathy that women inherently have. It's a winning recipe. So that I think is it's my go-to, tried and true, impactful story. It was a wow moment for me, and it kept me here, looking for more opportunities to be able to give back.
Yeah, that's a brilliant story. Thank you so much for sharing, Paula. And I think you made a really good point at, how sometimes the simplest processes that we might think are, really small actually turn out to be such life-changing processes and actually have such a big impact. It's a great story. I think, of all the stories I've heard in quite a while, that one definitely touches, all the soft spots. So thank you so much for sharing. Dana, what about you? What impact has automation made in your life?
So I joined UiPath in April of 2019, prior to IPO, and took this role in late 2020, and we IPO'd in April of 2021. And anyone who has ever been through the IPO process is absolutely lying if they say it's easy. I mean, it keeps you up at night, right? And I will say that automation for the finance team truly helped us sleep better without exaggeration, right? Taking these tasks, and I don't want to steal thunder and get into later, but when people say, where do you begin in automation? I say, what keeps you up at night, right? What do you want to take out of your mind? And that's where we focused and what we did. And as we've grown and we're losing our emerging status, and we have different certifications and compliance metrics that we need to hear, those can be intimidating goals to hit. But the fact that we now think automation first, and that's how we build our processes, brings so much comfort. And in a world where I am a working mother of two, surprise, I'm bringing a baby girl into this world in August, later this summer. So I have a lot going on. I work from home many days. It's hard not to bring that home with you. So anything that you can do to lighten your load, to lighten the load of your team, to allow them to be the most successful that they can be, I think is what we bring as leaders to the table when we really evangelize and think automation first.
That's a great story to tell as well. Thank you so much, Dana, and congratulations. All the best. I always say this to my friends in the tech space as well, especially females who have kids. I am constantly amazed to see how, women can, and men as well, can share, their professional lives with the family and kind of balance the whole, work-life balance thing quite well. So thank you so much for sharing. Congratulations. Hope it's going to be amazing. Susanna, do you want to follow on that?
Yeah, sure. And I think automation for me, I mean, like I said in the beginning as well, automation really creates, I think, value quite fast as well, right? And especially now, I think that you were also talking, Dana, about automation first, and that we're moving into different shifts as well. And we're seeing companies as well taking like the end-to-end approach also, and seeing how can we create real value within our business processes? How can we make sure that we have the customer journey is really easy, and we really create a better business by doing automations. And I think that is something, at least for me, that creates a big of impact as well, that seeing it in quite short a period of time, we can actually create this end-to-end values also of our, of course, the businesses, but also of the end customers. And then in the end, maybe it's a kid that got their wish fulfilled, right? Or if it's a hospital that has patients that needed, especially during COVID, we saw lots of different automations that were regarding both having information on COVID statuses, but also vaccinations. Within municipalities, we work a lot with public sector. That's also where we can see real value and to the person, the individual, right, in quite a short period of time. I think that's very, at least for me, that's very, very powerful. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy by working in this space as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I must share that with you as well, being able to see the value that it brings, being able to see the smile that it puts on people's faces when they realize they don't have to do the mundane tasks anymore. Completely agree with you there. Vineeta, what about you?
All right, so unlike Paula, for me, I was always very technical. So the impact that automation made on my life was because I was so inward looking, think technology, think architecture. But when automation came into my lab, I started interacting with business. That's what brought me so close to, all the customer journeys and how business functions. It really opened up my whole, the whole eyes that, okay, this is how business functions. This is what is important to business. And it personally helped me to actually become more visible and network and explain it to people. And I really started enjoying that part where I was actually solving a business problem and making it easier for them, like everyone else said that, if you could just solve it and make their life easier. And initially, definitely, obviously, what we hit was the simpler use cases, and the kind of impact it made was huge because we only took up those use cases. So I think that was the impact that it had on my life, where I really felt that, oh, now I really know why I'm doing all this technology work, because I really started getting into process details, business details, etc. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's also great to hear. So, I mean, I think there's another theme coming out here where, we all have a very strong attraction to, the way that we look at use cases, the way that we extract information out of those use cases, seeing how those use cases materialize and realize. It's definitely something that I think, a lot of people, apart from this panel, have seen, and, from the conversations I've been having with different people over the last few weeks as well, something that's becoming a lot more apparent. And I think, Susanna, and for Paula, especially for you ladies, it might ring true, when you're talking to a CFO and you put a dashboard in front of them and you can show them, what impact you've made or that your team has made. It's really powerful. And I think that is often where the penny drops about how important automation can be on a day-to-day basis. And with that being said, Paula, I'd like to just focus on you for a second. If we talk about automation and we look at, the different types of skills and roles that we have in this space, we've got developers, we've got analysts, we've got architects, we've got members of the Center of Excellences, we've got citizen developers, there's a whole range of skills and people that we have, within this community. What should the ideal package of skills for someone in automation look like? Is there a starting foundation skill set that we need to look at before we start looking at role differentiation?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. And for those of those who are on the call that maybe don't understand, kind of what intelligent automation is, maybe taking a step back to understand that there are several functional roles within this industry that we're talking about, right? And just like any other tech project, right? I think this goes back to the beginning of time. You have to have a business lens of why it is that you're doing something. And then you have to have the technical acumen to understand the implementation, the costing, and then what that implication is on the overall organization, right? And in today's world too, you have to take cybersecurity into consideration. And then there's several stakeholders that plug into these systems. And ultimately, there needs to be a trickle down effect on what the new state of events is going to look like and how processes are going to be. So it really takes the entire organization, an entire business unit to sort of make what we're talking about today tick. Now, I think just from the introduction of this small sample set of women that have spoken here, it's clear and very evident that there's not one size fits all on how to stumble your way, fall your way, or intentionally find your way into automation. And the one thing I will say that I think is a required skill set is what Vineeta said earlier. I think curiosity really is what's important. With the advent of ChatGPT, for example, which is a mainstream AI platform that's going everywhere, everybody has an opinion about that. If you just Google it right now, you'll see anybody's point of view. When things like that, when new technologies come into this space, there's a tendency to have fear, right? A little bit of fear and hesitation from humans wondering, if things will change. And having that reasonable curiosity to say technology and innovation is how we tick, right? I'm really grateful, for example, that I'm not shuffling on an iPod shuffle anymore, right? That I can get my music accessed at the same time that I check my phone and I can switch back, right? So there's certain advents of technology that if we look at from a practical perspective, it's clear that we want them to be here, right? It's just about adopting them and understanding that change management component to take away the mystery, right? And the fear. So I'd say having ample curiosity. The other thing is that this isn't an industry or a function or practice that you have to have a traditional college degree for. I think that's the other beauty about intelligent automation is that it's greatly democratized in the sense that if you have trouble with school, if you're dyslexic, or if college just isn't for you, you can still have a very successful, lucrative career in intelligent automation. And if you look on Glassdoor right now at what the going rate is for an RPA developer in the United States, I'm sure in Europe, because we've been asked for a few, and certainly even across the world with some of my representatives that are looking at India. I saw Brazil too, shout out there. Work there, but everybody that's on here, if you just take a look at the Glassdoor in your local, municipality, you'll be very surprised at the salaries that an RPA developer get. It is not, chump change. And it is not what it used to be 20 years ago, that a developer was an add-on and appendage to your IT organization and the way that you set up your groups there. So it truly is a career. It's a blossoming way to kind of find your way into something that maybe you weren't sure of. And because of the unique nature of it, there's several ways that you can go. So within this space, you don't have to just sit tight in one area. You can consult on it. You can work in industry. You can be a doer. You can be a helper. So I'm sure everybody will get into some of the additional roles, but I just want to stress that this is truly an organization, opportunity for everybody to upskill, to change what they're doing today, and sort of break the paradigm of the traditional way of going about, college, university, MBA job, college, university, MBA job. So it really gives you the opportunity to be nimble, flexible. And I think it's why it's, such a high sought after position, and why we're paying so well for it, because it's truly important.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more.
If I just can add, because I just want to emphasize on what you said also, Paula, that I mean, it's really that you should have curiosity, because in one sense, even though you're coming from the process side, but you want to move into the technical side, it's with low code and RPA, it's quite easy to do that. And you really need also, of course, the process knowledge in order to implement the technology, right? It's often something that really brings even more value. So don't be afraid also of going into path that you didn't think about in the beginning, right?
Yes, couldn't agree more. You have the right to change your mind along the way in your career. Exactly. And if you look at my LinkedIn, you'll see that I am a prime example of that. Dabbled in a whole bunch of stuff and landed here. But everything that I did prior to prepared me for being effective in this space. So I think it's important to shout that out to anybody in college or thinking through their career, or even, later in your career, think through a switcheroo like Vineeta shared about. This really gives you the opportunity to be flexible.
Yeah, it definitely does. I couldn't agree with you ladies more. I mean, we've seen it from the university side of things as well. I could not emphasize enough, Paula, when you said that, there are really very few barriers to entering, RPA and intelligent automation. You don't need a degree, and we're seeing that the technology is changing so quickly in the industry that even the university curriculums aren't keeping up the way that they should. So, I mean, at this point, being able to go onto the academy, having that training right at the fingertips of your team, anybody you'd like to get involved, anybody who you can see getting these opportunities, it really is a very powerful thing, considering that the training is all free. And, considering, I think a lot of the stories we've heard today and will continue to hear throughout the rest of this program, people who are kind of falling into this and being exposed to this in new ways will reiterate, you can come from any background and kind of pick this up with a little bit of work. Vineeta, Dana, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add on this topic. Any thoughts that you have?
I agree with the curiosity comment. That was my thought. That's the most important trait you can have. And I will say on my team, although we have citizen developers, we have an automation champion, even those who are not certified as developers, they contribute to our automation cause. So I would say, don't be afraid to join the conversation. Don't be afraid to get into that way of thinking and research and learn, because I think in automation, there's a place for everyone, and there is an opportunity for everyone, regardless of background, degree, place in life. It's there and it's yours if you'd like to take that opportunity.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Dana said. And, this is a place where everyone can fit in and they have a role to play. And it's equally important for everyone. And they have this opportunity to actually skip, skip, hop and jump. So you can start from a operations process analyst to a citizen developer to a developer, and so you can just keep on growing yourself. So in our organization, we run a reskill program, which is meant for operations people who are really keen on learning technology. And the first thing that we do to them is RPA, because it comes so quickly to people. They learn it so quickly. My grads or interns, when they come for 2 months, I'm able to extract a proper outcome out of them, because it's so quick to learn, and they're very happy that they are in automation and they've been able to get a process automated so quickly. So it has a place for everyone. That's absolutely true. You just have to have that inclination to do it. That's it.
Very, very good points. Thank you so much, ladies. I agree with everything that you've said. And for the audience, if you've got something else you'd like to add into the chat, any other advice you'd like to give, please feel free to drop that into the chat. Dana, I'm going to go over to you. In some of the background conversations that we've been having together and with some of the other ladies, there have really been two very distinct parts to experiences that people have had in this industry. So we've got on the one hand, people are very strong in terms of females in the industry, breaking each other down, putting each other down, not supporting one another. And then we've got something on the complete other end of that spectrum where, ladies are supporting each other, they're uplifting, they're being motivated, they're encouraging one another to do better. Through your career while moving up the corporate ladder, have you experienced one or both of these situations? Have you seen, how they've played out? And if you look around you now, what seems to be the actual attitude between women working in this industry at the moment?
Thank you so much, Jackie. An incredibly important topic for this group. I have experienced both, unfortunately, although I think it's made me the better. And now I know my own personal views based on the way I've been treated. I think in the times where women don't support women, it's really driven by a lack of confidence and insecurity, which is tough, right? Because sometimes you feel like the world is against you in this space. As a woman working in finance in an investment bank, I was very often the only woman in the room, right? I am petite in stature. We're talking men in suits, decades older than me often. That's an intimidating area to be in. And so I think that if you let that eat at you, it brings out the worst in us, and that often rubs off on others around you. And I absolutely experienced some of that. But I am also incredibly fortunate to have been mentored by and coached by and encouraged by incredible women who were champions for me. And I still think about those women on a regular basis. And sometimes it was not a one-on-one or coffee or a lunch. Sometimes it was a post-it on my desk saying, you did great in that meeting, right? Today, it is a smile on a Zoom call from other women when you're speaking and a head nod. There's a lot of that going on the panel today. I think that's absolutely fuel for what we do. It's a quick Slack or Teams shout out after a call to someone when they've done well. It's a, hey, you look awesome today, right? In the office when you're walking by, it's a word of confidence. I truly believe in the ripple effect of this. And I think as important as it is to share these amazing stories of us falling or taking a straight shot into where we are, it's also important to share with women around you that there are struggles and it's tough. I washed my hair in the sink this morning to make sure it was clean for our panel today because I was not feeling well, right? And that is the kind of morning I have had full of a cup of Gatorade. It's not always a straight shot. It's not always simple. It's important to encourage those around you. And I think that today I am so fortunate to work among incredible women at UiPath, our finance team in particular. I learn from everyone every day. We had the opportunity yesterday to sit and chat with some of our women leaders and to hear their background and their stories is just amazing. And so I think that the tide is changing overall. I think that attitude of lifting one another up is becoming to the forefront. And I'm just here to say for the men and women on this call, a kind word goes a long way, right? You never know when someone needs that bit of encouragement. Don't assume someone knows how incredible she is on that given day or at that given moment. A compliment can always help.
Oh, that's brilliant. And thank you so much for being with us, even though you don't feel so great, Dana. You look quite good with your hair that was washed in the sink, if it helps.
Thank you.
Awesome. Vanita, I think, this is also stringing quite true to what, Dana was saying, and also, seeing some of the conversations we've had in the background, this week. There was something that came across from your side that really struck me as something that was wonderful and quite powerful. So when you said that when I switched over to setting up an automation COE, every assistant that I was evaluating was a female. So Siri, Google Assistant, Alexa, Cortana, so on and so forth. Whereas research assistants actually had a male voiceover. So we're looking at like IBM Watson. Was this because of stereotypes? And, just to lead on to that question a little bit more, As you moved further along the road, did you notice, that there were any biases in terms of role perception? What were your findings, and did they live up to your living, breathing Siris, Alexas, and Cortanas that you met along the way?
Yeah, so this was strange, and I made this observation. Thank God it's no longer there, and you have a choice that you can make, and you can change the voice. But I personally felt at that time that, oh, these are female voices, because normally people associate, female voices with, and if you associate women with being good personal assistants, and they all feel that, oh, the value added jobs will be done by more men, and that's why Watson was a male. And that actually made me even more determined to actually do well in this area, because when I started doing automation COE, it was like a very nascent stage, and people didn't even know what RPA was. They were very scared. They just knew that, oh, there's one technology which has come which will take away our jobs. So that's what they knew, and there was a lot of pushback I used to get from all the business leaders, operations, even though my pitches used to be very, very data driven, etc. I did get a lot of support from, like Dana said, a lot of female leaders who supported me, and they wanted to help me out, and they could understand what I was saying, and it will help operations. So I really required that backing. And I wouldn't say it was just female leaders, but I got the backing from male leaders, and I didn't have any hitch in doing that at that point in time, because obviously I thought that it's not my job to fight this battle out alone. So I think I should have those influencers with me, and thankfully some people believed in this new technology and everything. One good thing which I did was, because operations was really scared that, oh, would I have to reduce my team size to just half? And they always believe that, especially in India scenario, the FT cost was not that high, and the bot cost was on the little higher side, because this technology just come up. And they used to always give me that example where they would say there's no ROI, because I think we'll be better off with people, and we'll be able to take care of our SLAs better, but bot can't do it. So always those kind of pushbacks I used to get. But when we slowly started with simpler processes, like Paula said earlier, which could get bigger gains, bigger returns, and then slowly, steadily, people started believing. One good thing which I did was that I reached out to operations teams only to do the process mapping, process analysis, and the automation analysis bit, and they got very interested. So because it was new technology, and they started getting very interested in that, they weren't bothered whether their jobs will go or not, because they were interested more in learning. And the best part was that, more than 60% of that group was who was doing well in analyzing automation processes were women, because I think they bring that diversity angle. They have this tendency to go very deep into the process, and they get into a little perfectionist mode. So they were able to give better analysis, better exception scenarios, etc. And they made very good process analysts, and they actually joined my team in the automation COE. And that's how I prove, I could prove it pretty well that, okay, this is going to work, because this was, instead of doing top down as well, top down, I also did bottoms up, and that could, help the whole cause. So that's what I really felt. And it also broke a lot of biases in terms of, what women can do, and, women can get into new technology. Even women from process can come into technologies and help out. So there were a lot of barriers that were broken, which was quite a big win for us.
That's great to hear, Vineeta. I think something that I just want to touch on a little bit, because I think it is a very powerful message that you're bringing across, is the support. This women in automation environments is something that is what it is today because of the support that we have, among one another, from men and women alike. I have a very special place in my heart for people who actually help other people succeed. And I think, we've seen a lot of success, and your story that you're telling now, the powerful message that you're providing as well, definitely speaks to how, this kind of just reaffirms that we can't really do things alone. We need help sometimes. And I think that goes for everything in life. So thank you very much for sharing. I think I'd also like to pull in Susanna here a little bit, because Susanna, you're also, you're a high profile female leader in the space. You've been working with quite a few different enterprises, as is Vineeta, over the last 2 years. And essentially, we know you've also just returned from maternity leave. So what I would like to do is find out from you, how was the transition coming back? Did you have to man up and face the music? I know that the Nordic culture also plays a bit of a role in these kinds of returns. So based on the conversation we're having, what are your thoughts and views on that?
Yeah, sure. And here I just want to, of course, invite the others from the panel as well, because I think that here we have cultural differences as well, and especially individual differences and of course experiences of how it's been. And I think, at least for me, take a step back, for me at least, the definition of man up is trying to be a stereotypic man, right? And having an attitude and maybe a way of doing things that isn't like yourself and like you do normally. And for me, I would say no, that I've never felt that I needed to be someone else than who I am. Also, because I think it's important that you can always feel that what you do is from your own values, right? And that it's something that you believe in, and it's something that you always feel that you can support 100%. But I also think that, of course, one thing, as you're mentioning as well, probably I do have help of being in a Scandinavian country where, for example, me coming back from maternity leave, I've been away for 11 months. I have the father of my child now is at home for 9 more months. So, I mean, after that, we're going to have daycare. I don't have to think about if it's so I'm going to choose between doing being at work or being at home with my kid, because I know that the society is going to help me with that. So, of course, that, I guess, is a very beneficial situation for me, right? And being able to be in this position as well with having that help. But I also think somehow, of course, that it's a company culture. And I also think that, I mean, when it comes to having to man up and having a company culture that is maybe predominantly male, or having role models, having leaders that are only male, also brings, of course, a different story, right? I have had benefit of being in teams, of course, with lots of women, and also being in teams with only male. But I've never felt that I have to man up, so to say, or being someone else than who I am. And I think one thing that's also quite nice currently, at least in the Nordics, what we can see, for example, UiPath is led by women. We have Roboyo Nordic, the CEO is a woman. And also our biggest competitor is a woman. So, I mean, here within the automation space, we have a lot of women role models that also, of course, sets the ground and helps, I think, other women as well to see that you don't have to be in a specific way. There are diversity within that as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead, Dina.
Yeah, just to jump in on what you said, Susanna, I think it's really important that wherever you are is the right culture for you. So I am in a global role. I do not clock in at 9 and out at 5. I am really on 24/7, 365. And I would not have that any other way. For me, I think it's important to have that flexibility, to be able to work back and forth, to be able to go work a couple hours at the book fair at my children's school and not feel like I've fallen behind on my day. I do not get 11 months of maternity leave here in the US. I get a shorter amount of time, but of all of the things on my mind, I'm not concerned about that transition back to work, right? I am in an incredibly supportive culture. We have that global influence, so it is very different. And I think that helps me in this way. To step on what Paula said as well, Ashim is incredible, right? So I have a very supportive CFO. That leadership comes from the top of supporting women. And I don't think the term man up in this case is right. I think for anyone who has ever heard the strong as a mother saying, I think that's what I'm leaning into here. So again, for anyone out there who is wondering how to fit their personal life into their professional life, look for that culture that embraces who you are and who you want to be.
Yeah, that is brilliant advice. Thank you so much, Dan. I mean, what you're saying now as well, 100% correct. You know, being as that expression that you used about the strength of a mother's love as well is very important. I mean, I think another very important point that you touched on was being able to find a culture that fits you just as much as you find it. And when I'm talking to you know, young individuals who are looking for their first job, that's kind of the advice that I give them all the time. You know, make sure that you're finding a company culture that works for you just as much as you work for it, because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, those people end up becoming like your family. And when you go through, you know, days like these where, you know, you need a little bit of understanding, you need a little bit of compassion, you want to be able to work in a culture where where your team will jump in and kind of help and support you. So ladies, thank you very much for the input on that. If there are any other comments, anybody who wants to add into, you know, the conversation we're having, please don't forget to just mention that in the chat. What I would like to do is just open this up for a little bit of a discussion as our last point before we open up to the floor, is to just find out, you know, what would be the differentiator between soft skills and technical skills? Where would we strike that perfect balance in the automation space? And Dana, your face is on my screen at the moment, so I'm gonna ask you to maybe go first, please.
Sure. I am a believer in soft skills, and I think that leads you to be passionate and find what hard skills you need to work on. So that curiosity, that passion, that work ethic, right? Everything that we do, I think what we have a common thread between us is that we all really work hard at what we do and we're passionate for it. There's a lot of fuel, I think, in the fact that we are so excited and passionate about it. It's what gets you up in the morning on a day when you're not feeling well. It's what gets you out there. So that those soft skills, developing your emotional intelligence, I can't say that enough for anyone. I think that's really important to be able to invest in yourself, because how you present to others is important. How you grow your community is important. And I will let the experts and Vinita and Susanna maybe talk a little bit more about the hard skills.
Yeah, so I'm a true believer, whether you're in technologies or anywhere, and it doesn't apply to automation as well. So I think it's in all kind of jobs, and especially even in technologies, if I take that case, they go hand in hand. And you can't say that there is a time when you have to strike a perfect balance. So, and especially when, you know, when you're working in teams, that's softer skills is extremely, extremely important. They play a big role in how good a technology solution you will build, because while you're building that technology solution, it's not a heartless solution that you're building. I think because it comes from, you know, how it's going to help people, because it's all about people, it's all about business, and it's all about climate. So all those things you have to think about, right? And so you have to bring in that empathy piece when you're making people work. And I truly feel that having soft skills is very, very important. Actually, when I do selection, when my team is selecting people or interviewing people, I do the last round for sure at any level, because that's what I look for in people, that, you know, do they have those softer aspects in them or not? Because skill can be still developed, but this is something that, you know, they can't be taught. They inherently bring it with them. So everything else you can you can build. That's what I truly feel.
Susanna, I feel like you were queued up to do another non-soft skill moment.
Oh, apologies. Thank you.
No, I was unable to unmute myself. Sorry. No, and I think I agree with Vanita. I think it's I mean, especially in automation, everything is change management. All right, so it's really important with your team members, and also, of course, with people around you and in the business. The soft skills are very important, and of course, it always helps that you have good knowledge of the technologies, that you have good knowledge of systems, applications, everything, right? But it's very difficult to say where that balance is, and it's probably, like Vineeta said, it's going to be different in different scenarios as well. But I would like to emphasize also on the soft skills on that topic.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that input. Paula, I'm curious to hear from you. Based on the advice that we've now gotten, the thoughts and inputs that we have from the ladies, can you see this actually impacting any exposure of the developments and skills that could be related to intelligent automation opportunities or RPA opportunities?
So yeah, absolutely. I think I think women inherently have some stereotypical skills that they come with, but not everybody has empathy by nature, right? Not everybody is compassionate or sensitive or kind by nature. Some of these more fluffy terms, right, that are typically associated. And on the flip side, there's some technical acumen from the female side of the house at Wonderbots that truly blows my mind, and they run circles around that. So I don't think that there's gender stereotypes in what it is that you can or can't do. Especially in this industry. I think what's more important to understand is that the evolution and everything that the women that have come before us have fought for is important for us to implement into what we do going forward. So I'd kind of twist that a little bit and just say, don't let it be a barrier for what you think through that you're going to do. If something was traditionally, male dominated, we'll break the paradigm, right? And if something was traditionally female thought through, well, why don't men take a stab at that too, right? And so I think really in this discussion, and especially throughout the course of Women's History Month, we have to remember, men and women are not the same, right? But the differences don't mean that there shouldn't be equality, and really less than equality, it should be parity, right? And just to be looked at and thought of and thought through in the same way. There's a lot of initiatives going forward with the pay gap, and there's a lot of initiatives going forward with pay transparency. A lot of those things, if you really think about it, take the soft skills, hard skills, whatever skills out of the mix. It's really about factual interpretation, right? More women are on board seats, fact. So we are making progress. It's come a long way since I joined the workforce. And again, I joined very young. I was a 19-year-old, employee, the first job that I had, and I went to school later. I did things unconventionally. So I've seen, the mean girl status. I have seen when there wasn't very many seats at the table, and women did have to sort of, competitively find their way to those places. And I've also seen this sort of advent of a almost woke culture, right? Of kind of bringing it in and bringing it to the forefront. Now, that's not to say that we should all be, there's anti-man or anything like that. They're some of the best allies. And all of my leaders have been men that support everything, that pump me up, that share, our co-CEO shared about this event. So there really is a lot to be said about just realizing that it's not about the type of skills, it's not about the inherent qualities that each, gender, possesses. It's about the individual, and I think if you take away anything today, we are celebrating women, but among us women, we're all individuals. I, for example, have chosen not to have children, so I won't have the same experience as Susanna or Dana of what they shared. It doesn't mean that I can't relate to them as a woman in technology, and a woman that has to, to see my way through certain challenges that unfortunately still exist. So I think programs like this are breaking the paradigm. I think we're doing a great job by evangelizing the good word, but it's always important to look inward and recognize that you are an individual. You might be part of a community, you might be part of a group, but it's really up to you and your individual state of if hair is going to be washed today or if it's going to be thrown up in a ponytail. And hopefully that's the message, that we share today, is that it's really about the individual, and this program gives you a lot of opportunities to explore different ways to empower yourself. So thanks so much for the opportunity, Jackie. Great question.
Thank you so much, Paula. It's so inspiring listening to each of you talk, really. The stories that you've shared and the way that you've brought across, your experiences have inspired me as well. I haven't been, in a woman in automation for very long, but, listening to all of you talk, listening to the passion that you hold really makes me want to continue. And Paula, you said earlier, you're not going anywhere. And I think I'm right, you're by your side. I don't think I'm going anywhere either. So ladies, thank you very much for sharing your stories. I would like to open it up to the floor as well, to the people who are participating in this chat as well. Are there any other questions? Anything you'd like to know? Anything you'd like us to answer?
I think maybe we can open up like a 10-minute Q&A now, if the speakers can stay with us a bit over the hour, since we promised this, that we will open up this Q&A. So I would ask the audience only like raise hand first if you want to go live with a question, and then unmute yourself after we take your question, so we don't get that background noise on the recording. And we can hear each other and hear you clearly as well. So who would like to put the first question, place the first question to the panel? Okay, we already have a raised hand from Ajita. You can unmute yourself. Okay, let's see. Okay, Ajita, you are able to unmute? If no, who would like to go next? If Ajita has trouble unmuting, all of you are able to unmute now. The setting is correct. Nobody wants to ask questions to the panel? No questions? I seriously doubt it. Okay, Heather, let's go with Heather.
Yes, so I am just joining in and has joined my department's automation enablement team. I'm currently doing a lot of the academy training courses. As somebody entering into this space, what is the best path forward? Is it to begin with the citizen development, or is there another curriculum that you find is beneficial to kind of get that holistic view when you're first entering into this space?
Who'd like to take that? Okay, I'll go. Heather, so I think citizen development is a great place to start. I think there's a lot of valuable skills and foundations that are offered on that course in the academy. So I definitely stick it out with that. And if you're enjoying that and you're kind of deciding whether you want to go more into the process analyst side or if you want to go into the technical side, then you can decide whether you want to go more in the business analysis, process analysis kind of academic journey, or whether you want to go to the RPA developer journey. But definitely, I think the citizen developer is a really good place to start. I'm not sure if anybody else on the panel would like to add or disagree with me.
I think I only can agree. Yeah, so it depends a bit also on where you want to go, like Jackie states as well. If you want to go towards process analysis, or if you want to do development, or maybe infrastructure, or the types of topics as well.
Yeah, sure.
Do you find that having doing the process analysis is a good starting point if you eventually want to go into the development piece to get that full view before you get into the more technical components, depending on your backgrounds?
Yeah,
I would say yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, ladies.
Cool, you're welcome. Heather, I think it definitely changes your frame of mind. Sometimes I wish more developers would go through the process analyst training first, because it trains you to look at things a little bit differently and understand, you know, how important flow is. So yeah, 100%, I would definitely suggest doing that.
I think this was also a good answer for Mallory, who asked earlier, she posted a question in chat that she went through the Citizen Developer Foundation and she already did some automations with Studio X and what to do next. And I said, I think you can try with Studio, but this brings more opportunities on the table, like what you can do next after completing and started automating as a citizen developer. Okay, I think Diana was next. Diana was done.
Hi, I'm here. Yes. First of all, I don't know when it started. Did it start like very earlier? Because I thought it will start at 5 my time. Am I on time?
You are on time, but we started an hour ago, the panel. So you're on time because you made it here. So I think
Yeah, because
this
this is what this is the time I had in my calendar, and I wanted to ask something similar to previously asked by Heather. Like, I am a business analyst working at the company partner with UiPath, and I'm thinking of transitioning into programming. And she asked, like, if citizen programmer, like if that citizen developer actually makes more sense. And I wanted to ask your experience. Did you start directly in programming? Did you have some sort of knowledge of it prior, or you started easily just with the process analysis, or how was your journey, if you want to?
Paula, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I was looking at the time zone snafu over there, and I can totally relate with having a global team. So I think so. I don't think there's definitely, there's specifically an order of operations, but and again, it's from my lens. Ultimately, any automation program, if you think about it, if you pull back for a second, any automation program or any participation that you have in intelligent automation is ultimately going to come back to what value are you providing the organization. So if you think with that lens, then to me, the most important thing to understand is how the process ultimately equals value, right? So so the training that I did initially when I learned RPA was business analyst training. UiPath had a program for a year, I believe, that was USN, right? And it was really understanding the fundamentals of being able to collaborate with the business and back to the development side. Development is something that can be taught. The training is just extensive. Even if you can't relate to how UiPath frames it, there's a million MVPs. Our team, has 3 MVPs this year that have YouTube pages that really teach it and explain it. I think the real crux of being able to be successful in this, if you're entering this space and you want to contribute to your organization, or maybe be a renegade that sort of raises your hand and said, I want to bring automation to my enterprise, I would start with understanding what the value of automation is. And if you can look from that lens of what it can bring to the organization and what it can do to, somebody's day-to-day, then you can reverse engineer. That's my process brain. Always goes back to outcomes and then reverse engineer into what it is that you need to do to get there. And I would approach my trainings in that capacity, because ultimately in any role within a center of excellence or in any leadership position in intelligent automation, you're going to have to justify the total cost of ownership of your program, and you're going to have to explain why it is that you need to renew licenses, add technology, add capacity, or scale. And if you understand that, that business logic at the very beginning, you'll be right on track to understand how to kind of grow and develop your skills along the way.
And maybe I can take the other perspective, because I actually started with developer training, right? And I actually started before that, when UiPath Academy didn't exist. So we had the YouTube videos that we were looking at and trying to figure our way out. But I still believe that it's very important that you understand the business processes in order to do the development. Even though you may be coming from a programming background, but you want to understand, or you want to develop RPA, or you want to develop low code, or any other tool. It's like we normally say, shit in, shit out, right? I mean, the process needs to be correct in order to create the value in the end, right? Even though you're a really good programmer, it doesn't really matter. But I would say that if you have a bit of a business logic, the developer training is also quite good. If it's so that you want to look into just starting to playing around and seeing what you can do with it, it's also quite fun.
Yeah, and just to bring all of that together, so the citizen developer training is great because it touches on Studio X. And I think of the entire suite or the UiPath platform, Studio X is probably the core of where everything comes together from the different perspectives. So if you're a developer, you'll find use in Studio X. If you're a process analyst, you'll find use in Studio X. So it really is, a good place to start. I see there was a question in the chat as well. The citizen developer training is a good place to start.
Yeah, I can vouch for that, because last year within the organization, and Vibhu helped me with that, was we did an RPA hackathon actually to evangelize automation within the organization. There were more than 250 people who participated, and we wanted actually, non-developers to actually learn it. And the experience that we had, they used Studio X, the citizen development program, and we gave them a week-long training, and they they could develop bots within 2 weeks. So it's that easy. So just go with confidence and you'll be able to just get it if you know your process as well.
Awesome. Chris, were there any other questions? I see there's one in the chat. Mallory is asking, can someone speak to the key difference between Studio and Studio X? Susanna, do you maybe want to take that one?
Yeah, Studio X, what it does is that it's trying to make it even more simple in order to do the development. So there are lots of things that are simplified in Studio X, which you can customize, so to say, in Studio. So I would recommend people also going into Studio because I think it's a very powerful tool and it's quite intuitive. So don't feel that you need to get stuck with Studio X, so to say, if it's so that you're feeling maybe that you don't have a developer background, but you want to try it out. Studio X is really good because it visualizes things in a smart way, and it also, I mean, it shows you how you can do things a bit more simple. But if you really want to go and do a bit more powerful things, then Studio is the way to go. And you can, like I said, you can customize, you can write your own code if you want to, but it's really intuitive, that one as well. So don't feel afraid of it.
There was another question in the chat, a few up that I just caught. That was, do you need any kind of development experience to get started with UiPath? I think I can speak to that. And Dana, as a evangelist from finance, the answer is no. So if you don't have, and what we're talking about in this kind of development is very different from traditional, C#, other types of Python development that you might be familiar with or you might be associating it with. It's a little bit more of a visually stimulating coding exercise. Even still, there are very technical and advanced ways to go about it, but you don't need to start off with developer understanding. In fact, I've heard sometimes, maybe Vineeta can correct me if I'm wrong, that sometimes it's nice to be a novice in RPA development, because then you don't come in with habits or understandings or learnings from your prior experience in development. So I think you're actually prime for it, Kin, if you haven't been in it yet, to go ahead and take a course and begin this month as a boot camp to get you started.
Yeah, I've seen that personally, that the bots developed by people who've just learned it from scratch, and they were not stud developers of any sort. Their bots were very easy to maintain because they were so visually good. Whereas, somebody who was very experienced in development would put in their custom code, like Susanna said, and they would put in an API consumption like endpoint and, all those things, and make it so complicated that for L3 support team, at times it used to become like really havoc to actually maintain that. So I think for simpler processes, it's best that it's developed by somebody who knows the process pretty well.
Just to add for everyone on today, it's one of the things you take away is that the only barriers out there are the ones you put there for yourself, right? There are no barriers that anyone else has made for you. Don't be intimidated. Much like Paula, my best skill set for something that isn't working is to turn it off and turn it on again. That's what I go back to. I also ping the IT team regularly and ask for support. And I have a career in finance and automation. So go forward, be excited and curious about it, and don't let it intimidate you.
I think that's so well said. There's no silly questions in this. It's emerging technology, which means we're all, even though we're practitioners, learning every single day. And I think that's important to share as well.
Kayla, you had your hand up. I saw there was a message in the chat as well from Vijay. So Kayla, do you maybe want to go first, then we can answer the question in the chat?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Kayla. I'm an RPA developer. I'm fairly new to the workforce, like about 4 years, but do you guys have any advice on how to advocate for yourself and have the conversations for career development with your superiors and just kind of highlight your skills?
I think I can take that up. So Yeah, so I think what you need to constantly do is just believe in yourself and be, very curious about learning new things. And that's going to take you places. So if you want to learn something, just go out to your line manager and ask for that training course, go do that certification. Just keep learning, and that will take you places. And then whatever you need, just ask for it. Go and ask for it. That's very, very important. And just make sure that you are talking, you're teaching people. Make sure that you are mentoring the newcomers as well, because that will make you everything that you're learning will just get reinforced. You will also learn where you're not going right, or where you could improve by actually mentoring, say, fresh grads or interns, etc. So just keep on doing that and make sure your learning process is continuously on, because this is one field where new things keep coming all the time. So there's, for example, if you take UiPath, there is UI Fabric, AI Fabric, which comes up, and then there is a document understanding which comes up, and then there is an process mining that comes up. So you can just keep learning. There's no end to it, and that's going to be your growth story eventually.
Thank you.
And the other thing I'd add to that too, I think Vinita is absolutely right. To stay, teachable and to stay present and to stay, current is very important. But the other thing that I think is important to do, especially new in your career, is to keep a brag sheet on yourself. So anything that you write, anything that you do, document any compliment that comes from a client, any email kudos that you get from a colleague or from, your manager. It's not just in performance reviews. And if you're at an organization, because as startups begin to emerge and as the workforce begins to change from a stoic nature to a bit more nimble, there's less and less formality around performance reviews and those kind of things. Insist on them. Insist on performance reviews so that you can get frequent and constant feedback on where your organization thinks you are versus where you are. And that's the opportunity to share those brag sheets. But it's very important to be your own advocate. I think Vinita is absolutely correct in that. You are your own voice. And as it relates to pay and when it's time for an increase and all of those kind of things, just think about you're always pitching yourself, right? And so you have to put that lens on of what have I done lately? And it kind of keeps you in check too, to see, I haven't gotten a client compliment in a while, or my colleague hasn't said, hey, Paula, can you come help me with this? Like, what did I do? What do I need to shift? What do I need to change? So I would really recommend doing that, especially if you're early in your career. And then when you retire, you can look back and be really proud of everything you accomplished.
Thank you.
And I don't know if I heard correctly, but I thought you said that you've been 4 years within the automation space. Then I would say that is actually quite long also. So feel confident about that, and that you have lots of experience. I mean, this is a very new field. So
thank you. Yep.
The one other thing I would add is some of the best advice I ever got very early on was to treat every day and every interaction as if it's an interview. So don't be afraid to call out those things that are on the brag sheet that Paula mentioned. Don't be afraid to share what you're working on. Make sure that you're showing up with that positive attitude and that smile. I think all of that shines through. And often it is those informal interactions that end up having such an impact on your career and your opportunities.
Yeah, that's so much. I think what, Paula and Dana just said is so important about brag sheet, because that's where women lack. And I've seen that throughout in my team, that, women always think that my work will speak for myself. And that usually doesn't happen. So maintaining this brag sheet is extremely important. You have to advertise when you get a good customer comment. You have to just make sure that you advertise whatever you did.
Yeah, sure. Something I'd also like to add, also from a developer perspective, something that I am a very big advocate of is, making sure that your work gets out there. And if you're not doing it for other people, do it for yourself at least as well. I can't tell you how often, we've thought of solutions, we've put solutions together, and 3 years go by and we need to go figure out, what we did there again. So quite a few people in this industry use blog posts, use GitHub, they use a whole bunch of tools at their disposal to actually document, some of their solutions that they've done so that they can go back and actually look at it. And in turn, if you put something like that on your GitHub profile or on a LinkedIn article, you know, you're kind of building up that brag sheet as well. And there's kind of a two-side effect to it. So you're doing it for yourself so you can go back and reference what you did, but you're also putting it out there for other people to benefit from. And, you know, when you put it out there for other people to access, you'd be surprised how many other people you're actually helping.
Thank you so much.
And that nailed it, Jackie. That nailed it. Is that it's really about what you give back. And so if you're keeping constant tabs, and then you can go back and give back to those that come after you. That's truly where it's at, and that's where you learn the most.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. I'm not sure if there are any other questions. I'm not seeing any hands or any other new questions in the chat. Cristina, can we hand back to you?
See any other questions either? Would anyone else like to ask a last question for the panel? I know, and I want to say again, apologies for those who joined us a bit late. I know the EMEA event link had a problem from the platform, so they got a calendar block an hour later. This means that they missed the first part. So I'm really sorry. The recording will still be available to everyone who registered. Please understand and excuse us. So it was not our intention in any way. We want to make this content available to as many of you as possible. And we will follow up with Priya Dakshini now in introduction to RPA, if there are no more questions. Okay. I think, yeah, we have only supporting comments in chat. I really appreciate it. So it was a hard moment for us because we worked a lot on this panel, and all the speakers also worked a lot, and there was a lot of effort put in it and time. And it was all meant to go through across to you. So it was not meant for anyone else. I think Priya is in the chat, and I think we can wait, like take a short 2-minute break for you guys to get a coffee or a glass of water, and then we can come back to intro in RPA with Priya Dakshini. Priya, are you with us? Okay, I will check with Priya. Let me just see, she's here. Okay. Thank you to all of our speakers who joined us today, to Paula, to Vinita, to Dana, and to Susanna. There was a great momentum. There was a lot of engagement in the chat. So I think definitely you did a great job into really empowering so many women and opening up and bringing so much light onto so many issues. And we have great comments in the chat to everything you said. And I'm sure many will still keep coming. For example, look, thank you for today's kickoff session, very inspirational and encouraging. So a lot of women felt it through. Thank you very much for that. And thank you, Jackie, for doing such an amazing job in walking us through this whole process and moderating so greatly. We deeply appreciate you giving us your time. And let's switch over to Priya now. Priya?
Yeah, hi.
Hello,
Hello,
Priya.
everybody. That was one fantastic panel. I mean, like, I loved it. I was like literally clapping for everything that like Paula and Dana were saying, and even Vinita. Oh my God, I couldn't agree with you guys more. It was just fantastic. And Jackie, you did amazing.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies, for joining.
Okay, I think we can say goodbye and thank you a lot to our speakers today, to Paula, Susanna, Vinita, and Dana, and Jackie as well. This was a great mix of clients, partners, and UiPath MVPs, of course. And now we are continuing with UiPath MVPs in the person of Priya and stepping into intro to our team to see what it's all about. And I encourage you all to follow this session, this very first session, which is common to both training threads. We will keep feeding you links in the chat. So this is the starting training session, the very beginning, intro to RPA, and then you can decide which thread to take, whether you want the Studio RPA developer thread or the Studio X, which is the citizen developer thread. And we can, of course, counsel you more in the chat on that, and you can also ask Priya throughout the session. If any other MVPs are in the audience, they will help as well, but we have plenty of the community team in the call as well. So follow along for intro to RPA, and thank you everyone for still being here with us. Priya, you have the mic.
Thank you so much, Chris. And first of all, I want to say like Happy International Women's Day to everybody. So thank you so much for staying back for the session. So if you do have any questions, feel free to post it on the chat and I'll definitely get back to that, okay? And don't feel shy. There's no silly question. There's no wrong question. All right. So let's dive into this. I'm going to share my screen. And there's a bit of like technical difficulties this evening, but we'll slide through this. All right. So bear with me. Okay. All right. So this is going to be your session for like, what is RPA? Just getting to know the lay of the land of UiPath and what RPA really is. Because you've heard all the amazing things that RPA did to all the amazing women from the panelists, right? So now you want to know, like, where do I start? Like, how do I learn? So that's what we're going to be seeing. So we are going to see like what RPA is and what RPA is not, because that's really important to know what RPA is not, so that you don't get into all these myths, okay? And we'll go through a lot of benefits and all the things that you could accomplish with RPA, okay? And then we'll walk you through the environment setup. So first off, RPA is basically robotic process automation. It's a software. So UiPath is the software that basically mimics the human actions while you are interacting with the computer. So most of the time, all of us use the computers on a day-to-day basis, basically like, extracting information, you're reading information, you're like visually like interacting using your keyboard and your mouse. So those interactions can be mimicked using this software. So all you're saying is like, you don't have to be tied to your computer if you're doing a very mundane job, that you don't have to be stuck with your computer for like 8 hours a day. Instead, you could like actually give those kind of menial tasks to the software, and then you could do high value tasks. So like anything that involves like higher capability of like, cognitive capabilities or decision making, or even like building the human relationship, which is really important in today's world. So that's where the RPA comes into play, where you can actually interact with the computer and mimic those actions. So the basic actions that we are going to mimic are the keyboard inputs, the mouse movements, and reading from the computer screen. Okay. And we need to know what RPA is not. So there's a lot of myth, like especially when I talk about RPA to people, like let's say like an elevator pitch, like for 2 minutes or so, people think like, oh, you work with robots, meaning that they think of a physical robot. But that's not the case. So this is not like a humanoid, like a real physical form. So this is not an actual robot, but this is a software robot that exists on your computer. So whichever machine that you use, be it virtual, like your laptop, your desktop, all of those machines have this kind of like RPA software installed, which will help mimic those actions. So it's not a physical form, okay? And definitely it's not a human replacement. So it's not gonna like, even though it says like process automation, it doesn't necessarily mean it's replacing the human. Like I said, again, like people are far more important, because like that's where your cognitive capabilities come in, where you can accomplish like very high value tasks compared to a very mundane task. So this is definitely not a human replacement. And there are like several organizations that look at it as like, some organizations do look at it as a cost saving method, which kind of like really doesn't like kick them off on their RPA journey. So that's where I would say like, just take a spin on it and don't look at it just as a cost saving method. So this is not like, one of those get rich quick schemes. So this is basically a journey, a digital transformation, where you like step into like, from RPA, you do the intelligent automation, and then like you can take on to AI and make this more like powerful to keep your job far more easier. Okay. Then we're going to look at the benefits of RPA. I think like I've already mentioned. So again, like RPA basically helps businesses in several areas. Most of the clients that we've worked with like have talked about like increased execution speed, like the accuracy, especially because like, remember, these robots don't take vacation. So they don't have like sick leaves or anything. So they are going to be there right there when you want them to be scheduled. So it's based on like what you want the command to be. So if you want it to be running like all 7 days in a week, yes. 365 days in a year, yes, that's what it's going to do. And the rate of errors is going to be like really, really low compared to like when we do it, because like I myself, like when I'm typing a whole presentation or like a whole thesis, like definitely there's going to be a lot of typos, and that's where like I get like all this grammar help and all the spell checks. But like when you take the RPA, when you take this software, like there's like far like, I mean like very less like room for making any errors. And also like because of the schedules and like because of the way that you built it, you would be like completely in compliance with any regulatories that your organization reports to. All right. And a few examples of what are the actual like use cases that you could do on a day-to-day basis, because each of us work in like different areas, different industries. Like you could be from accounting, IT, or like, you know, HR. Like everybody uses, anybody that uses computer can like think of a thing that you can delegate to the software. Okay, so if you are logging into an application every day, extracting certain PDFs or like certain files and emailing a specific person on a specific time, or like if you have anything that can be like delegated. So I would say, like, I would just throw this as an example. I always like tell any of our new clients that are like stepping into RPA and not sure what they want. So I would tell them, give them an example. So every organization has like interns coming in each year, and they train those interns. They actually like assign a person to train them. So think of it as like an intern that actually helps you does the job, except that like you're not really like paying it like a actual paycheck, but instead like you're giving the delegation to that robot. So this is really going to help you in terms of like what are the processes that I can delegate from your day-to-day job. So take a look at your everyday activities. What am I doing? Like where are my like, you know, 80% of my time being spent on a day-to-day basis? Because that's going to give you an idea of like where do you need help. Because most of us when we are working, you know, like we don't really realize that we need help, but like there are like certain areas that we like to complain about, like, you know, like when you're using a certain system and the search takes like forever to come back, you're like just sitting there and getting frustrated because like the system's not loading. But instead, like you could delegate that task to like the RPA, this software, and like wait for like it can actually like deliver you the results to you in like any form, like upload it to a SharePoint or like to the actual system. Like you can like process those documents and like send it over, like, or you can connect it to any of the APIs, and like you can email it to anybody. So all of these are like very common like use cases that's like very basic for RPA. Any questions so far? Yes, like we're doing good. Okay, so now that you've heard enough about like, you know, what is RPA and like what are the major benefits, what it's capable of, like here's where like you need to understand what does the UiPath platform consist of. So UiPath as an organization, they offer like variety of like products, but for us to build a software robot, these are the three major components that we need to focus on. Okay, so there's the studio, the orchestrator, and the robot. So basically, you need to build the robot. So you need a place to design. So the studio is your canvas where you actually build your robot step by step. Okay, that's where you design. So that's your IDE. So something similar to your Visual Studio if you're like into coding. And that's what like your studio would look like. And there are two flavors of studio that UiPath offers. Okay, so there's the studio, which is like for like complex applications that can be built, and there's the Studio X. So the Studio X is like focused mainly for like the business users who are on the business side of activities where you can do like simple process automations from your computer. Okay, it doesn't involve a lot of coding. All you need to do is just drag and drop and like analyze what kind of flow that you'd want. Okay, and during this Women in Automation program, there are like 2 learning paths that's available, which is like specifically for Studio and for Studio X. So you get to decide like which lane that you want to take, and then you can like learn from that. All right. So that's about Studio. Once you've built your automations, it becomes as a XAML files. Okay, those files are then packaged and given to the orchestrator. So think of the orchestrator as the mastermind. Okay, so that's your central admin that actually executes your robot. So this is like one place where you can control like how your robots are run, like what's the schedule, or what's the parameters that you need to pass, or who gets access to what. So all those kind of like administrative activities can be done through the orchestrator. So that's where you basically control and manage your robots. All right. And then like you need to execute the actual thing that you've built. So using Studio, you've built it, you've given it as a package to the orchestrator, but when you actually want to run it, which is the moment of execution, that's where the robot comes into play. Okay, so the robot basically like takes up all the files that you've created and it runs with it. All right, so these are the 3 major components: the Studio, the orchestrator, and the robot. Okay, so let's get you all set up with your automation cloud profiles. Okay, so I want you all to just go to the cloud.uipath.com, and from there on, like we'll help you like install the Studio and the assistant and help you select the Studio profile. All right, so if you could just go to your browser and go to cloud.uipath.com, and one thing that you need to know is like once you sign up with the cloud portal or any other like UiPath portal, it's a single sign-on, meaning that like once you sign on, you can use like all the different portals that are available within UiPath. So you can use the automation cloud portal and the academy, which is where like you learn. So that's the learning management system, which is available here, which is the UiPath Academy, where you can take the courses. And then there's the forum where you can ask questions. So all of that, like you can just use your single account. Okay. So I'd like you to go to the cloud.uipath.com. I'm just gonna get Vibor to share a screen. Again, like there's some minor glitch from my end that my cloud portal, some kind of VPN's blocking mine. All right. So I'm just gonna walk through from Vibor's screen. All right.
Can you stop sharing so that I can share my screen? Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Vibor, for your help. And Priya, we have some questions in the chat regarding the differences between Studio and Studio X. So at some point, let's address the differences as well, so we can get more clarity into the training threads.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. So with Studio, I think like as soon as like we have this pulled up, then I'll be able to show you where those 2 different flavors are. Okay. So I'll show you that in just a second. Okay. So let's first sign up so that like people that are already in the sign up page can like move forward with that step, if you don't mind. So that like everybody can be on the same page there. So as you can see, like when you go into the cloud.uipath.com, you'll be presented with like a series of login credentials. Okay. So if you're using your company portal, like just go ahead with your Microsoft, or like if you want to use your Google account, or if you want to use your single sign-on, you could use like any of these authentication methods for you to create your account. And again, just remember, like this will be the same account that will be linked to the academy and the forums, like wherever you post the questions. So if you want to like learn in your personal time, I would say like use your personal email. But if you're doing it for your business purpose, just use your company email as well. All right. So in my case, like I've been using my Google account just to keep track of things. So that's what I would use. And once you use that, you would just go through the authentication methods. And then Vibor, I'll just give it to you for a second. Can you just pull up your cloud portal?
Okay.
So in the meantime, like as soon as like Vibor pulls that up, like all you would see is like that's gonna be like your central area where you can actually download the software from, and also like that's the area where you would manage the access. Okay, so once you install the software, it basically takes like less than like 2 to 3 minutes just to install and get it ready. Okay, so once you've signed up, this will be like the home screen that you'll land on. So this is what we call the automation cloud. So this is your cloud portal that basically has access to everything. All right. So as you can see on the right side, you would see like an easy download. Okay, so this is where we are going to download. And again, like Studio and Studio X, for all of them, there's just this one installer. Okay, so for both Studio and Studio X, we will install one thing, and all we are doing is like just switching profiles. So if I have to like make it simpler, I would say like, imagine you've got your Google profile, all you're doing is like turning on the light theme and the dark theme. So I don't want to make any Star Wars references, but there's a thing. All right, so I would just say like download Studio here, and that takes like fairly like less time, and just once you install, then like you will see the software coming up. Okay, so right here on the right side, do you see the download button? That's where we are gonna like hit download. And since we've also already got it installed, I'm not gonna do that, but again, like it's gonna be a very simple download. Okay, and once you have that, you'll be presented with a screen like asking you like your user credentials. So use the same email ID that you used to sign up so that it can like link it to this account. All right, and sometimes it even like gives you a fun question of like, what do you want to name the robots? Again, this is your personal assistant, so give it like any meaningful name. You can call it Alexa, Siri, like whatever that you want. Again, this is your personal assistant. All right, so once we have that, then you would have the Studio installed. Okay, I'm gonna pull up the Studio in just a second. So the very first thing that you might see would be like this screen, like probably. Okay, so you might be presented with this screen. So this is where like the difference is. All right, so the first thing, like this is where we are gonna like separate parts and like explain like what Studio and what Studio X. All right, so the Studio is basically the software, again, like where you build like more complicated, like a little complex automations where you need to have like unattended robots or like, you know, test robots, or like, you know, anything that involves like extra programming. Like again, it's not like too extensive programming. This can be done, again, this is a drag and drop software. So the IDE is like very simple. It has over like 300 plus activities, so you can easily drag and drop these things. When I say like complex programs, it's just that like you can modularize things. You can like have like a solution architect that will actually explain to you like what the design is going to be like. So instead of building just one file, you can have like multiple like workflow files combined into like one robot package. So the Studio gives you the capability of like building such complex automations. Okay, versus Studio X is mainly focused on the business users, like who don't necessarily need to have that level of like, you know, extensive like extensive unattended automations per se, because like you can run these robots on your machine as attended robots. So these are basically like, you're basically building an automation just for yourself, so that like you can share that like within your team, like any task that you'd like to automate for you and for your like, you know, the group that you're working with, that can be done through like Studio X. So Studio X is like fairly a lot lighter version of Studio, I would say, that would actually bring up all the capabilities that pretty much like the Studio has. But again, like it's lighter for the business user, where you can use like email, Gmail, like any of these like Excel, Word, all these any kind of software that we use on a daily basis can be automated again with Studio X. So if you want to like expand your knowledge, then I would say like go with Studio. So for today, I was just going to show you the Studio, and there's more like extended training that's coming up in the further along the Women in Automation program that's like inclined towards Studio and Studio X. And again, like you can choose those learning paths and you can dive deep into that. So once you're presented with this screen, this is where we get to choose. And again, like if you choose something else, it's very easy to change. So if you chose something else, don't worry, just open the process, okay? And come to this tab right here where it says settings. All right. So it might like default to the general, so don't worry about that. On the very bottom, you would see the license and profile, okay? And then you just need to hit change profile. So if you already open Studio X and you don't know like how to switch to Studio, this is the step. Okay, so all we're doing is like open your process or just open Studio. Like if you haven't built a process, that's not a problem. So all you need to do is just pull up like your Studio, go to settings, and from the settings tab, go all the way to the bottom to the license and profile. And from there, you would choose like what's your profile. Okay, did that answer your question, guys? Do we have more around Studio? Okay, I guess, Chris, you've got it all handled. That's awesome.
Yes, I'm supporting the chat. For intro and RPA, I can manage. From intro onwards, I cannot promise.
Yeah, throw it at me. I'll be happy.
I will post now some clarification. So if anyone still has any questions and is undecided on which training thread to choose from, I will post an advice now in the chat so you can decide much easier. Yes, and yeah, I think we've taken care of that for you.
Awesome. Okay, so we actually dug deep into the actual profiles. So let's see, like if you were choosing the Studio, or even if you don't choose the Studio learning path, it's pretty much like the similar IDE. So I'm just going to show you the software around so that you can get like familiar with it. All right. So the very first time, once you install like Studio, you might not have all this recent, but like you might just have like a new project. Okay. So all we're going to do is like just create a simple process. I'm just going to call it like demo Women in Automation. Oh, that's what I think he created. So here's where like you can give a description. So if you were like building a specific task, you can give a description of what your task is going to look like. And here's where you choose the location. So you can always change this. Like once you've built it, you can just copy it over to a new location and save it there as well. Okay. And then it just pulls up the very default process. And as soon as it builds, like it gives you like a default set of like things that you need, like the references. All right. So you would have like all those references like already added. Those are called the dependencies, as you can see here. It's saying like restoring dependencies. So it's just pulling up like the basic like Excel and all the libraries that it needs to run. And it will create the main.xaml. So the XAML is like the extension of your workflow that you will see for every file that you create, okay? And this is just building your workspace. As you can see, the default layout of the Studio comes in like 3 separate panels. Okay, so I'll just go over really quick. So as you can see, the project panel is where you see all the files that you're building. So let's say if I want to add like a couple of more workflow files, I would just go to new and select like if I want to build a sequence, a flow chart, or like, you know, like the state machine or anything that I want, I will just add it. Okay. So when I add like, let's say like I just add a sequence, I would just say like test workflow, then I would just hit create. You would see that here right under this project area. So all the files that you're working with will appear in this project. Okay. So if you want to keep like any of the files, like this is the location to look at. And then if I hit on the activities tab, so this is where you would see 300 plus activities and you could add additional packages. So let's say if you want like a specific like Abby, like a OCR software, like, or anything that is like very third party, or like that you don't see here, that does not appear here, you can add those packages very easily. So when I say activities, as you can see, I'll just scroll through a couple. Okay, so you would see like very basic things that you can easily drag and drop. So let's say I want to like append to or create a list. So if I just double click, it would just add those activities here. Or I could, like I could just drag this thing and drop it inside the workflow. So there are like different ways that you could just do that. So these are like basic things, building blocks. I would say, like, consider it like Lego blocks. So these are your building blocks for you to build your own design. Okay. And this activities panel is very intuitive. All you need to do is just search. So if I want to like search for a message box, I would just type like message box, message, and then like you would see like all the activities that are named around that. So it's very easy to search the activities, and you can like even like, let's say you like these activities, you can add to your favorites, and it will be set up on this profile. Okay. And if you wanted to add like additional activities, like I said, if you don't see like the activities that are installed are not enough, and you wanted to add additional things, I would say go to manage packages, and you need to choose where your location is from. So this will give you the default, all the installed ones. And I can just go to the orchestrator host and figure out like, okay, let's say I just want to install something for AWS SDK. I can just hit install and save it. Then all the activities that are listed under this AWS would be appearing in this activities panel. All right. So if you don't see that, like, feel free to search for the marketplace, and like marketplace has like a lot of like public libraries that are available through the UiPath libraries, which are activities built by UiPath and other like partners and other like enthusiasts within the UiPath community. All right. So just make sure that your packages that you're installing are also showing up here under the dependencies. Once you install, you would see. So under the dependencies, currently the Excel activities pack is installed, and the mail and the system, the testing, and the UI automation. So these are like the basic building blocks that you will need to build a very simple automation. All right. So, and then you've got like a simple code snippet. If you just want to see and test out like, hello world type of things, you can easily see here. Okay. And the central area, so we saw everything that's on the left. Now in the central area, this is like your canvas, I would say, if you were a painter, to build your design. Okay. So this is where we are going to be building our automation. So anything that you're going to like build, like any activity that you would choose, comes in this central area. So this is your designer panel. Okay. So this is where we are going to like build all the automations, be it flowcharts or be it sequences or state machines, everything is going to be here. Okay. And on the right side, you would see multiple tabs here. Okay, so I would go over the primary one that you would need is the properties tab. So for each of these activities, I would say that every activity has a display name, like certain properties associated to it. So all the activities has its own characteristics. So those characteristics are defined on this far right side. So you just need to go to the properties tab, and that's where we are going to set or like, define the values that are required for your automation. So again, like you can choose any activity and you can like specify what are the properties that are associated to it. And one pro tip that I will tell you is like whether you choose like Studio or Studio X, anytime you drag and drop an activity, I would say, please rename that activity to something more meaningful. So I would say like I can have in my automation 100 assigns. Okay. And when I run the automation, let's say an error occurs, which obviously you will run into an error. Okay. So anytime you run into an error, for you to debug and for you to like, troubleshoot that, it makes it a lot easier if you rename the activity to a very unique name. That way you can identify which is the step that failed. Okay, so this especially comes into play when you're building like complex automation that involves like multiple workflows. In that case, this is a very easy tip to avoid like, chasing down which activity is the one that caused this issue. Because if you have 100 assigns, all 100 of them are called assign, and then you will not know like which assign failed. So instead, I would say like, here's the display name. You can either double click here, like after the assign, you can just like name it like assign adding values. Like you can just call anything, like give it a very meaningful name. So that way, you know, like which is the assign. So now that it fails, let's say if it has an error, now I will know like, oh, assign adding values is the one that failed. So I would be able to like directly pinpoint to that specific activity. Okay, so this is a very common like coding best practice for people that are like starting out automation. So be it like Studio or Studio X, just remember to name your activities. All right. Okay. Any questions so far?
Does anyone want to ask any question, or you can just place in chat if you have questions so far on the product presentation? Let us know. If any of you is shy, just pose a question in the chat and we'll take care of it. Did any of you manage to install and download Studio or Studio X?
Did anyone run into any issues even installing?
Okay, I see. Yeah,
Perfect.
okay, seems okay. Good, let us know
That's
in
awesome.
chat if there are any issues. And remember, you will have the recording, so there is no pressure. If you run into any problems now, I don't know, the download doesn't work as expected, you have troubles installing, you will be able to come back tomorrow and install it. So after the recording. And Diana, we'll see what issues you had. Okay. I think we can go on. Yeah, I will check with Diana on the issues. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to go over like a few more items on Studio. Okay, just to give you a glance of like what it does, a very simple demo. So this is nothing complicated. I promise you that. So when you open a very simple process, you'll be presented with this ribbon on the very top. Okay, so here's where you would like create all your like workflows. So anytime that you want to create a workflow or sequence or a flow chart, any of that, you would just come here, give it a name, give it again, like give it a meaningful name. Just don't name it 1, 2, 3. Otherwise, again, like you would get confused, because any of the automations that you would build, you would come back, let's say like 5 months, 6 months down the lane, and you want to add an additional functionality. It always makes it easier if you give it a name, so that you would remember coming back, 6 months later. Then it will be a lot easier if it has like a meaningful name. And again, like keep it short so that like it's not like a lengthy sentence. All right. And it again, like you can just save it and export these files, and by default, like you can just debug this and you can run the file or run the entire automation as well. And we talked about managing the packages. So what we're going to do is like, I'm going to show you a very simple like app or a web recorder and how it extracts the information. So how it interacts, because we talked about RPA being like mimicking the human actions, right? So let's see how it does that. Okay. So for Chrome, we are just going to make sure that it does have the extension installed. All right, so I'm just going to go to tools here. Since we have Chrome, I'm just going to go here. So if you don't have, and this is the first time that you're installing UiPath and you need like extensions installed, so all we do is like, you've got your basic process. I'm just going to go to the basics. So from the start, like you see the tools here, you just need to click on UiPath extensions, and here it would pull all the different browsers and all the other add-ins that you would need for your automation. Okay, so Vibor's already got installed his Chrome extension, but for you, if you don't have it, just hit install and it would close the browser just for a second and it would like pop it back again. Okay. Okay. All right, so if anybody has questions around like how to get the Chrome extension or any other extension for that matter, all you need to do is hit this home, okay? And then just go to tools and then hit UiPath extensions and you would select the right extension that you want. In this case, we just want the Chrome, okay? And as soon as Chrome is installed, then you would see like all the extensions. So since he already has it, I'm just gonna make sure, like as you can see here, it's already out there, okay? So I'll just show you in just a second. So as you can see, if I go to the settings on the browser, you can see the extension settings for UiPath Web Automation is already turned on, okay? So once you install from Studio, this should be this screen, okay? Once you open up like Chrome, you would see that the extension has been installed. And again, like if it's not there, don't worry, just go to the extension, hit manage extensions. And if it's turned off, just turn it back on. Okay. So I'm just going to show you a very common website, the tripadvisor.com. And you know, like some of us use it like, you know, just to search. So this is a very interactive website that has things where you can type, you can extract information. So this is a very simple exercise. So I'm just going to switch over to Studio. And now that we've got our extension installed, all I'm going to do is use this web recorder. Okay. So I just like click record, and the moment I click record, you can see that there's this green box is popping up, meaning that the software is asking like, what do you want me to record? Like, what are you doing? So all I want to do is like type. So I'm just going to scroll over here to this search bar here. Just select that. And if you're not ready to record your screen, don't worry, just hit like F2 and then like that kind of pauses the recording just for a second and then you can come back. So in this case, I just wanted to type because the search bar is an area where we are going to type, right? So I'm just going to type Sheraton Seattle. I spelled Seattle wrong. I'm sorry. And then like I'm just going to hit enter. Okay, so that's not me typing because I don't type that fast. Okay, and then it's going to click on this. So I'm just going to make sure that it selects the right one. So I just want the whole thing to be clicked. So it's going to click. And again, like it's building the workflow using the recorder. So what it does is like, again, there are two ways of building your automation. I'll tell you that. Because one is you can pick and choose your activities and configure those properties, and you can select like exactly what you're doing. Or you could use a recorder to actually build it for you. So what I'm doing is like one of those methods where you use the recorder for it, okay? So this time we're just going to select it, hopefully. Let me see. Sometimes it could get like a little tricky here. All it does is like, it's just clicking this, okay? And once you're done with your recording, and like you can just stop it by hitting the save, or if you're not happy with your recording, like you can just like close it and like you could redo this at any time. Okay, so right now I'm just going to show you what it built. Okay, so all I did was like I had the browser open, I have the TripAdvisor portal, and then like I just went in and typed the Sheraton Seattle. Okay, and then like it hit enter right after. So let's see if it does that. Okay. So now I'm just going to go back to the browser. I'm just going to close this. Okay. And we are just going to run this file just to show you what it does. Okay. So all it's supposed to do is, like with what we've instructed it, it's supposed to just pull up that browser, go to tripadvisor.com and just type in that Sheraton Seattle. Okay. So let's see if it does that. And it's loading, it's pulling up TripAdvisor. And again, hands off, I'm not doing this, like it's a robot. So it's pulling up the TripAdvisor and it's looking for that search bar to type. And sometimes it can be a little finicky, like especially, you know, like if we have like different resolutions of screens or like different versions of like the monitor, sometimes the UI can be like, you know, placed all over the place. So this is like just easier just to type it. So it did find that search bar and it was just like typing the Sheraton Seattle. And as soon as it's done, it just finishes so quickly. So even before I could finish my sentence, it was done typing that. So let's go here. And it actually even closed it. So I'm just going to make sure that it doesn't close it for now. Okay. So we'll just leave that one. Okay, so then now that it typed that, I just want to click. So I'll show you the second method where we actually like configure it. So now I'm not going to use the web recorder. Okay. Just going to use the click activity, a simple click. I don't want all these fancy ones. I just want this one. So I don't want my click to be outside. I want it to happen inside the browser. So I'm going to drag and drop it right under my type into activity. Okay. And as you can see, now it's asking like, where do you want to click? So I'm just going to like say, okay, now it's going to like hover over. I don't want it to do the cloud portal. So I'm going to buy me some time using the function F2, which is just like pausing the recording just for a little bit. Okay. And I was still not ready. So I'm sorry, I'm just going to buy more time. And I'll go to tripadvisor.com. Sorry. So I just wanted it to click. So it's actually highlighting like which is the selector. And we are just going to confirm. So you can make any of the configurations or modifications for your selector right here. And we are just going to confirm. Okay. So you would build your automation step by step this way. And I would say like, if I just click that, then it would come here. And I'll just show you the next. I just want to get the text. So I would say like, I just want to get the scrape the text from the screen. So I just want to extract the address. So in that case, I'm just going to drag and drop this get text here. So I'm just going to say from here. And then I want it to be saved somewhere. So I'm just going to use a variable just to hold that value. So I'm just going to use a shortcut to create a variable. So variable in this case is like a placeholder where I want to like store that extracted text. So it's just like a holder for me. So in this case, I just created one and we can print that. Okay, so this is just going to be a very simple one. So we'll see. I'm just going to use a message box, which is just going to be a pop-up. Okay. So just say addresses. And then leave it to that. Okay. And again, like anytime you build your workflow, if you do see an exclamation point with a red, big red sign, that means like there's something missing or there's something misaligned that's not like typed correctly, or like it could be like a different variable or different kind of property that's set. So just take a look at it and like configure it correctly up until that exclamation goes away. And again, like don't worry, sometimes like if your system's slow, it would just like come and like it would vanish in like 2 seconds. So don't worry about that. Okay. But just make sure before you run it, like there are no red exclamations. Okay. So I'm just going to close this for a second. I'm just going to run this and see like how it goes. Okay. So this should basically like pull up the TripAdvisor, type in the Sheraton Seattle, and like pull up that specific hotel. And again, like you could replicate this same activities for any of your systems. So let's say you're using like SAP, like your timesheet, like your HR portals, or anything that you use on a day-to-day basis, you could replicate this. So imagine like you'd have to get some data from like a certain portal on a daily basis from your company portal, and then you'd have to send it over to somebody. Then like you could use like a simple automation like this that could do this for you. And again, like using those clicks and everything, like you could simply download the files from certain, like let's say you would use like Workday, and you would have to make some updates and then like send that information or the report. Then you could use the email activities to email it over to your team, and even upload it to a SharePoint. So all of these are like, you know, like endless possibilities that are available using UiPath. And if you like get stuck, or like if you have like any questions, feel free to use the forums. And again, like I'm a big like fan of forums, so that's where I started my journey. So when I started learning UiPath, that was my support backbone for me to build my knowledge, because like I cannot just learn just by, you know, just by doing my day-to-day activities. There were things that needed to be done, like, you know, learn from other people's experiences. And that's where we come as a community to help each other out. So just feel free to like ask any of your questions, and the forums has like a ton of knowledge base that, like, you know, someone already faced the roadblock that you might have faced. So you can easily like, you know, search for those questions, see if there are answers. And if yours is like a unique case, you can just like post screenshots or even your workflow if that's possible. And that'll be like a lot easier for people to like, you know, come back and help and fix your workflow. So there's some hiccup here that it has trouble, you know, like struggling to type. I'm sorry about that.
Priya, I just want to say we have like 2 questions in the chat that I wasn't able to answer. And I also just want to say to everyone, I posted the UiPath forum link in the chat now. And we will also open either a dedicated thread or a group for women in automation, and you will all receive the invitation by email to that group. So once we have that dedicated group, you can either ask your questions in the wide UiPath forum or also directly in the women in automation group to get an answer from this community and the ones who engaged within this program. On the questions we had in the chat and that were unanswered. So we have some limitations from persons who had previously installed company versions on their machines.
Okay.
Like Mallory. She's saying, wait a bit, Mallory. She's not able to switch from Studio to Studio X. When she goes to settings, license and profile, it says cannot change the local license while connected to Orchestrator. So it's a block.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's an easy switch. I'll show you. Okay. And as you can see, the robot actually extracted the address and it presented in this pop-up box. And that's what my use case was, like extract the address and interact with the system. So I'll just show you really quick, Mallory. So that's, hopefully this fixes it. Okay. So on your computer, just look for like the assistant. Okay. You should see this purple icon. Okay. So what we're going to do is like basically disconnect for a second and then like, switch the profiles and connect back. And one thing, if you're using your company profile, I would advise to check with your company, because sometimes they would have like a different type of licensing models. I don't know, like some companies or some organizations or business units, they don't allow like, citizen development, or like they've restricted their developer licenses. So if that's the case, you might just want to check, but this would be an easy fix. So if you just go to the assistant, then I would say like on this right corner, you would see your user profile. And Vibor, don't worry, I won't sign you out. But Mallory, if you just go here, if you hit sign out, you would just like sign out of your profile just for a second. Okay. And then like see if you can like switch, because like if your orchestrator is the one blocking, this should be like easy. So if you still have your studio open, just come back here to the settings and go to this license and profile and hit change profile and switch it over. Okay.
Hi, Priya. It looks like profile's disabled on my version.
Oh.
So maybe it looks like maybe I can't switch it. And so I just have Studio X and I can't switch to Studio, but like Cristina said, maybe I can just use the cloud version for the purposes of
Mary, you can do two things. So one is to ask your colleagues in IT to fix the problem and whether you can fix. Or the second is to use another email address, download from Community Cloud. We will make sure to have on event link, the Community Cloud link as well. And you will download it from there and start with the training from scratch. Download, install, and do everything just as Priya demoed it today. So that's the second option, but I think IT can also fix it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Mallory, that's a fantastic question that you just asked, because like, most of the people ask this in our sessions, and I personally, this is just my opinion, I would say, is that like, I would use this on my personal laptop using my profile. So that way I keep up with the learning, your learning is, you are the limit to your learning. So there's nothing going to stop you if you want to like continue learning, right? So I would say like install this on your laptop, and this is not like too heavy or anything. So compared to like, Visual Studio Enterprise or Professional, those would be like heavier software. But this is more like Visual Studio Code, like really light. So that shouldn't like be heavy on your personal computer as well. And you can do this at your own pace. So if you like not just the Women in Automation program, I would say like if you want to continue with the RPA journey, it would also make it easier for you to follow along with the lots of exercises that are given in the academy. And, like you could continue with a different learning path as well. All right. And a pro tip, I would say, like, is if you're using your personal profile, you can also keep up with all those, the learning diplomas, even if you switch companies, just in case. So that like, all the learning sticks around with you. All right, so that's about for today's demo. I'm just gonna switch back to my screen just to maybe before I'll just share my screen for the rest of the slides. Is that okay?
Yep.
Thank you very much, Vibor, for your help and saving the day.
Yes, Vibor was the savior of the day today.
Yes, because I was in live session, I could not do it, and I asked him like, "What's up, Vibor? Please connect with Priya."
I'm so
it's good we have
Vibor.
options and resources and solutions for everything, and this is what community means, yeah.
Yes. And yes, and again, like I'm so thankful for this UiPath community managers. I want to mention like Chris, Diana, Vibor, because those guys are like the support pillars. Like anytime anything goes wrong, like they are always there to make their magic happen. And Corina as well. Corina, Owana, I haven't forgotten you guys. You guys are also the best. Thank you. So again, like as I said, like we went through all this, like, you know, how the studio layout looks like. I personally love the dark theme layout, you know, like that's like any developer's, you know, like preference, I would say. Like everybody loves this and it's easier on your eyes. So you can like easily like, you know, get around with the activities panel, the designer panel, and the properties panel. And again, like most of the time that you're going to be spending on would be like your designer panel and the properties panel, like, you know, figuring out these activities. Okay, and how you want this. And I want to add all these additional resources that UiPath offers. You know, like once you sign up with your profile, be it like your personal or your company account, you get access to all of these. So once you've signed up to the Automation Cloud portal, you can go to the academy.uipath.com and like access all the different like learning paths, not just the Women in Automation program. If you like wish to pursue further and look at all the different products that are available, there are like, you know, specific courses tied to each product, and there are like, you know, exercises that you could practice in your own time. And forums are my personal favorite. Like I said, you know, like I cannot like learn enough. So even now, like you know, you could be an MVP and still we all learn each day. So for us, like we still learn from each other. So the community is the core base for us to, you know, strengthen our knowledge. And this is where we get all our knowledge from. So I would say like helping each other out also, like, you know, like comes in the form of forums. So give back to the community using the forum. So let's say you learned something and you want to see somebody like struggling through the same thing. This is where you would like, you know, step in and help that person. So I would say like there's no silly question, please use the forums. Okay. And the marketplace is like a fantastic marketplace that has a lot of components that are like custom components, reusable workflows, everything that's out there. And you can easily download and like you can have those like, you know, startup kits that you can readily start and use it. And the community.uipath.com, again, please mark this on your favorites, because like this is going to be like the link that will provide you like the regional activities that are happening. So you can go to like meetups, workshops, virtual events, anything that's happening, you would see this on the community.uipath.com. So you could become a part of your local chapters or even virtual chapters or anywhere across this globe. And you could attend all these events through this community.uipath.com. Okay. So feel free to reach out to any of us in this Women in Automation program, especially Chris. And, you know, she'll be the point of contact for us to drive this. And this is me, Priyadashni, your trainer for today. Any questions, please feel free to post here, okay? Chris, any questions?
Guys, I think we can open up like for 10 minutes a Q&A now with Priya. So you can unmute yourself. I will just check the setting now to see if you're able. You're able, but please only one at a time to unmute and ask Priya for some questions. Meanwhile, I will be posting now all the relevant links in the chat for you to just copy paste them and keep them handy. For the program follow-up, you will also have this in the program, but it's good for me to give you now a starting set with all the relevant links if you have them closer. So let's see who would like to pose this first question for Priya. I know many of you had issues with the profiles. Some of them you had questions about the limits of the license, others about the RPA developer role and how soon it takes to get there. So let's see who wants to ask a question.
So Chansuk, that's a good question. So you want to know like if the robot's running, it kind of takes over your computer. So yes and no, I would say that like if you're running like an attended automation, so there are different flavors of like the software, how you can run it. So let's say you're running it only for your personal task. Yes, it would take away your computer for those few seconds. And again, like the robot's like really fast in terms of accomplishing your task. So that would be like only for those little amount period of time that the robot's going to be doing. But you can also use, like there's a mode called picture in picture, where you could like, just like your iPhone has this picture in picture, like you could run this inside a different session, giving that same access. And that way you don't have to like stop your day activities, and this would be running in a different place. Or like an alternative would be to like, have like a virtual machine and like have it run unattended. So it all like depends on your preference. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, the links are in the chat now, so make sure all of you copy the links. And on the first program link, so this is the link where you can go and sign up now for the training thread to continue in the program. So I advise all of you following this intro in RPA today to go to number 2 segment. I will share a bit now again the program page so you can understand the journey in the program better.
And Rama Rani has a question. Just
okay, let's finish with the questions first, and then we can like log out, because I think it makes sense like this.
Yeah, I just saw this question pop up. Yeah, so Ramarani, to update the version in Studio, I would say again, go to that cloud portal. So cloud.uipath.com. So remember on the right side where it said download, you can just hit download and it would automatically like, update your version. So even if you have an older version, using this, you can still update your version. Okay, I guess that's about it, Chris. Thank you.
Diana has a question. Diana? Hello.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi.
Yes, of course.
Hi, thank you, Priya. It was very nice, very easy to understand. Too bad that mine didn't actually work, but I will watch this. It's okay, but I will watch this meeting again. I wanted to ask you more, how did you find it? Like, how did you start on this journey? Was it hard for you? And like, what insights do you have to give us if anyone else is interested? Because I certainly am, as I am not a programmer, and you've done it everything so fast and so nice. And maybe I want to end up like you.
Oh, that's so nice.
That's a great question, because Priya was not in the panel, and she's a developer and the UiPath MVP, so she can share a lot of insight on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of like, switching careers, so there was a moment like I was, so for just to give you a background, I come from a computer science background. So I finished my computer science degree and I did a bit of software development and like then became a solution architect. And I did like a bit of software development across the board. So with all of that, like I was able to understand like, what the business needs. And once I saw that the business needs this, and then I was able to be that, the bridge for that gap, because now I have this technical knowledge, but I cannot like, like bridge this. So that's where like it was a bit of a learning struggle. But like my first day that I interviewed for an RPA job, I literally asked my interviewer, can you spell UiPath for me? Like literally asked them like how to do that. So that's very basic how I started. And back in the days, there was not a lot of help like what we currently have. So it was even more challenging. But today's world, you have like lots of resources on YouTube. So I would say, do not worry, even if you don't have like any of the developer background, because I've helped like at least I can like, like literally vouch for like at least like 7 of the women that actually, did not have that level of background, but they are now doing well in RPA. And I'll tell you, like these are like personally like some of my friends that came back from a maternity break and they were struggling, like after like a couple of years the IT industry changes and it's really hard for them to like blend in. So it was, RPA was like the magical path to get back like on a fast track. That I will tell you, because like every other technology, it requires you to like learn, like have that in-depth knowledge, and you need to have that experience. But RPA per se, especially with UiPath, you have this like, that open learning policy. So you have academy that's like available to everybody for free. It's not like closed, right? You're not like paying any dollars, any money for anybody. Like all you're doing is like you're learning. So I would say like invest 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes in yourself every day, and like just like at least watch videos, and like take time to just practice. Okay, so I would say like my personal favorite was using the academy practice exercises. You know what I used to do? Like I tried like the academy exercises the first time and I was like, okay, I got it, so now what? And then I decided, okay, I need to like really try to make this efficient. So if you know the solution, don't stop there. Just try to see like, can I make it better? Can I like turn it into a different way? Because that's how you will like like open up your possibilities for AI. What can I do to make this like intelligent automation or like smarter? And you will like end up, you would be amazed at the results that you would bring to the table. So I started like like it's a funny thing that I would time myself in making like, how can I make my automation faster? It was finishing it in like 25 seconds, and I was like thinking, no, 25 seconds is not enough, I want it faster. So I had like a friend that we would compete like whose robot was faster. So that's like a funny thing, but I would say just take your time, start learning, and it's going to be like a really, I would say there's a wide range of job opportunities that are available with RPA. Okay, and me personally, I'm taking some time off. So I'm a new mom and my kid just turned 1, so I'm still like like taking my time, enjoying my time with the little one. But even today, like every single day, I would receive like job offers because of my knowledge in RPA. So this is not, this knowledge, no one can take it away from you. Okay, so always remember, like anything new, and this UiPath community, the community.uipath.com, that link, save it in your favorites, because like those guys, they come up with meetups and like workshops and hands-on workshop. So everything happens, you can attend it, like at least register for it. Let's say like you have your day job and you're busy, at least register for it, and you will receive the recording later so that you can watch it. Okay, so that like you can easily stay up to date. Hope I know that was a long answer, but I hope that kind of gave you an idea, Diana.
Thank you very much. It was a beautiful answer, and I loved how passionate you were when you were answering it. So it makes sense that you're working in this, because it's, I cannot see a better thing for you to do, to be fairly honest, and I really hope that this will be my future too. Thank you very much. It was beautiful.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
I
Diana,
look
for the
forward to
question.
see you as a MVP, Diana, someday. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, cute, nice, thanks.
We have some more questions in the chat. There's one from Juliet asking, what is the difference between a solution architect and a business analyst?
That's a good question. Like people, when they enter this whole, IT industry, be it like, not just RPA, I would say like in general for software development, like, like any kind of like, let's say the business comes up with an idea, hey, I want this software. And then like, there's a person sitting down and writing down, writing notes of like, what does the business need? Like just analyzing, like collecting the requirements. So that person that's actually noting down like what the business needs are, that's the business analyst, because they kind of question like whether you really need this solution. Like, because the business can ask like, for the moon and the stars, but somebody needs to like, reason with them and tell them like whether it's like really needed, because there could be something else that's already available. Like they might not be aware of something that's already available within your organization or within a different team. So that's where the kind of business analyst comes into play, where they like kind of bring that sense into their table and let them know like, okay, this truly makes sense and these are the things that are feasible. So they kind of like agree upon that. And the solution architect is the person that will like really like have that broad range of knowledge of like whether that solution truly makes sense, and whether that solution can be implemented, and how the design is going to be. Because the business analyst basically comes up with the requirements. They would come to you and tell like, okay, this is what we need. I just need to build an email automation sending these emails. but the solution architect would tell you like, okay, whether you need to use like APIs or like how can we make it efficient and not hit the the email server and blast it out. So the solution architect literally comes up with ideas of how to make it efficient and like use the basic design principles to understand whether like which design would be appropriate, because the solution architect gives those requirements, like whatever that the business analyst gives, he converts it into like technical requirements and he talks to the developers, so that way that the developers may not necessarily understand exactly the business requirements. So that's where like the solution architect comes in and adds those technical flavors. And like, instead of saying like, just give me these emails, he would like explain those in like, the technical terms. That way it's more like refined into a very specific requirement. And the solution architect is the one that will, how do I say, that will actually design your software, because like he makes it like better or worse. So you either make it or break it.
Thank you for the answer, Priya. There are just two more questions in the chat. One is from Chansuk. Is it a recommendation or in fact a necessity to keep a repository of automation projects when you're going for automation developer jobs? So like a portfolio, I think Chansuk would like to mean here.
That's a good question. So I would say like if you've done like your personal homework, then it would not be required, but it would be nice if you have that. Like, it's a nice to have, but it's not like a real necessity. Because like when it comes to job, like people basically like start with the entry level jobs based on your experience. So they would like have like, like a regular interview, like, because like when I'm interviewing people, I would know like by the third question whether this person knows this or not. Because like some people would say like, just I've done this, I've done that in the resume. But when you really ask like from the project that they question of like, okay, what activity did you use? And if they cannot like really answer that, then that tells me they've not used the software. So it's okay, like if you have the repository, it's a nice to have. But when you're like, moving jobs, I would say like, the companies basically wouldn't give you their software. So there you would have these NDA agreements. So in that case, you may not be able to have that kind of repository. But for an entry level, you can definitely have that. So it wouldn't hurt.
That's correct. And we have one more questions regarding the MVP. We have one person asking, what is UiPath MVP and how can I get this?
Okay,
So,
I am an UiPath MVP, I'll tell you that. So
yeah,
I'm a most valuable professional. That's like an award given by UiPath. They are basically like recognized industry experts in this area. So I don't work for UiPath, but I'm a user of UiPath. And I would say like I'm a fan of UiPath that loves the software, and I love to like share this knowledge, and I love to like give out for the community. So which makes us like the most valuable professionals, because of the expertise that we bring into the table, and also like the passion that we share to like give back to the community. So this is a program, I think like Chris would will drop you a link in here that talks about. So even if you just type in Google, just type like UiPath MVP program, it would land you in that page that would talk about like what are the benefits of becoming an MVP.
so
There we go.
If you go to the community hub, which is this one, uipathcommunity.com, you will see that this UiPath Community Hub holds all the power. So all the links that we gave you, Academy, Forum, advocacy programs like UiPath MVP, Automation Cloud, all of them are linked into this Community Hub. I will give you the link once again to keep it handy. And here in contributors, we also have a page regarding UiPath MVPs. We have more programs within the UiPath community, but out of all, UiPath MVP is the highest recognition you can get in the UiPath community, and it's meant for the high contributors to the community and also the high expertise. So it recognizes two things, which is high expertise in the UiPath platform and high community contribution just as Priya is doing today. So all these things that we give back and freely in the community mean community contribution, and they lead the way to becoming a UiPath MVP. So you can check out this program. I will give you the link. It's the highest recognition you can get in community. And I think Priya can also tell you a bit about what becoming a UiPath MVP does for your career and where it like places you in the job market and as recognition, amplification, awareness.
Yeah, I mean, like being a UiPath MVP is a privilege. I mean, like I take so much pride in this, mainly because the amount of recognition that you could get. Like prior to this, I would say like in LinkedIn, I was like very modest, like not a lot of connections or like not a lot of communication. But like the moment that you expanded your network, like like people want to connect with you. So this becomes like this puts you in a very how do I put it in like layman terms, I'd say like celebrity status. Like this becomes like in the tech industry, especially in the automation industry, like it becomes the center of focus. So like every organization starts looking at this, and if you have this on your resume, like you are like like pretty much like I would say like guaranteed like that you would like get multiple job offers. Because like even today, like I said, like even with my break, I would say like people still like offer me jobs, like like at least come as like part-time and stuff. But like with this MVP program, you would get multiple benefits, not just with the job offers. I would say you can even shape the software, the roadmap of the software. As as a user, you could give the real feedback of what your customers are facing or what you are facing to the actual product managers. We have like direct link to the product managers, like through Vibor, like we just send like one email and like he can easily like set up a call with all the product managers. And like we actually met them in person thanks to Diana and Chris and Vibor, that we were able to spend like 3 days with them, really like giving them multiple feedback and like gaining that insight. Because sometimes you want to know what was the intent of building that software. Because like sometimes the products are presented, but you want to know like why was this created, what was the reason behind it. Those kind of intel, it comes like with this kind of privilege.
Yes, it also means that you reach that degree of expertise where you are able to give feedback and discuss the product roadmap and influence the features. So to put in discussion the features directly with the product managers, you have that expertise as to be able to influence that and discuss their feasibility and use and what you have seen in your own experience. So that's very important too. It takes some working experience and expertise to get there. But it's true, you get to influence the product roadmap and have the direct conversations with the product managers in UiPath when you become a UiPath MVP. It doesn't take a lifetime. We have MVPs who have like 3 years, 2-3 years experience. It only takes dedication and how much you advanced in the software and practice. I think if we have no more questions, and I'm very glad to see that there were also answers between each other in the chat. So this means you're already helping each other with information, and this is how a real community is built. There is one last question. We'll take this last one, and then I think we will close the session and thank Priya for her time. Sasmita is saying, I'm having 3 years experience in RPA production support. Could you please suggest me which role I should take, RPA business analyst or RPA developer? So she's talking about further career development.
I would say, I mean, if you personally ask me, I would say the RPA developer, because that gives you the hands-on experience of what it takes to build your robot. Because like with the business analyst, like you wouldn't know from the business side, like what your robot's going to do, but like how it does and what it does. I would say the RPA developer would give you the, like the knacks of it. So don't be afraid. Dive in and become a developer.
I think we are done. Do not forget, I will place one more time in the chat the program link. So please do not forget to go and register for the upcoming training thread. The sessions are starting next week, both for Studio and Studio X. Until then, And from today's session, I hope you got enough of context in order to be able to decide which thread to choose and move forward. These threads will mean assisted training, also done by UiPath MVPs, and office hours to troubleshoot your demos and exercises. So there will be 2 active training sessions for each product, 2 office hour sessions as well, where you can just freely say what problems and challenges you have and troubleshoot them with UiPath MVPs. So it's very valuable. Please, please access the link, go and sign up for the training thread and continue. At the end of the program, we will have a UiPath credential for this program. So you will get a diploma, but it will actually be in a higher form of a UiPath credential, which you will be able to share on social. So it will be added to your LinkedIn profile as a UiPath software credential from UiPath. I hope that's a good news for everyone and that encourages you to move forward with us and at least continue until the end of the month with us on this wonderful journey. Thank you everyone for coming today. It was a long meeting, long, inspirational, and full of learning as well. Thank you very much, Priya, for sticking with us almost 2 hours and then some. But I think all the time was worth it today, and especially seeing all these great women and some men also here, all supporting each other and willing to learn together. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a nice evening, day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.